Welcome to the Ascend Growth AI podcast, where we mix smart growth moves with a little AI magic. I'm Teresa. Let's dive in. For today's guest, we have John Wright, Director of Franchise Success at New Again Houses, known for cultivating high performance cultures. He's led large business systems through major growth phases and is passionate about building teams that scale with purpose and engagement. So, John, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
How about we start by having you share your journey with us?
So, the shorter version, 30 years in retail, everything from cart pusher to regional staff. Learned a lot. Retired from retail, started a real estate journey, and knew somebody is the short answer that needed to create a coaching culture here at New Again Houses. So they taught me out of retirement, and I was the first coach for New Again Houses, and we created the process, and we have grown since that point. So when I started with New Again, we had 13 locations. I was the only support system outside of some marketing support, and we have grown that to 12 folks here at the home office now that support the system. We're up to right under 60 locations now, and that's within a couple of years. So we are continuing to grow. We are still emerging, but the system works really, really well. The culture works really well, and I'm happy to be here. This is a great retirement job.
Oh, wow. That's really nice to hear. For our audience who doesn't know what New Again Houses does, can you explain what they do?
Yeah, so New Again Houses is a franchise that has a model around a piece of software that helps you get the correct ARV for a property that you're thinking about purchasing. I'm trying to state this in the best way that I can because there's some proprietary information in there. But basically, the software Master Suite helps alleviate the stress around not knowing what the end result's going to be. So we kind of aid in that process. We've got a support system around that. We have proprietary partnerships with companies that aid in the financing of those properties and the ecosystems around creating the correct operations to finish those properties and then sell the property. So it's a real estate investment franchise. The disposition strategies can be the standard flip, and a variation of those can be new builds, wholesales, and we aid in all of those. So it's a really low overhead franchise, but a really high margin product. So the biggest difference between us and like a mom and pop type of house flipping endeavor is scale. Even myself personally, before I was part of this system, I would flip maybe 2 houses a year. Our average franchise owners flip somewhere between 8 and 12 a year. So it's a big difference in our process.
Wow, that's almost like one a month. That's crazy.
Yes.
Wow. And who are their ideal, like, who are the franchisees' ideal customers? Is it someone who, wants to flip their house? Is it like, can you explain how?
Yeah. So the franchise owners, we have a marketing process that basically helps search for residents or owners that have houses that are distressed or they have inherited a house that they don't know what to do with. There's some probate scenarios where somebody may have passed away and we don't know really what to do with it or how to deal with that. And we've got partners in the title world and in the legal world, and of course financing behind that to basically solve any of those problems. And the short answer is we will purchase that. The franchise owners will purchase those properties, add value through construction, use that software that I talked about before in our system and our support to basically turn the house into something newer and then resell that. So we fixed a problem for the begin user, the seller. We've created value through construction, and then we will sell it to a new end user, a new homeowner. And we traditionally stay within an affordable housing piece because we want to try to transform communities, especially urban areas or issues in the rural areas where there might be opportunity with that, and create an affordable house specifically for retirees or new homeowners. There's some of our locations that vary from that, but most of what we do is affordable housing, whether it's a new build or a flip.
Yeah, that's a nice mission. If the clients didn't go to New Again Houses, where would they go? Would they just go to a realtor to try to sell?
Yeah, technically you can list anything on the MLS. The problem in the MLS is the system that realtors list on. So, if you're looking at Zillow or Redfin or any of that, all that derives back to the MLS system. You can list anything on the MLS. The problem is not everybody can buy those products. So if it's missing the right kind of windows, or the flooring is messed up, or the roofing is messed up, or the doors don't shut correctly, and it depends on what type of loan that you have, right? Not all those products qualify for loans. So therefore, if you don't have $100,000 laying around, you can't buy that property. You can't
Right.
sell the property because there's no end buyer. So the result is investors will come with money in hand to buy those properties. They're the solution for those, and then they fix the house to the they give it the ability to be able to go on the MLS and for anybody to be able to buy it.
Mm.
So the lower or the less money you have down on a house, the likelihood that the house needs to be perfect in order to purchase it goes higher. So like if you
Right.
get an FHA loan, for an example, or a VA loan, you can't, like, there can't be any window issues. There can't even be paint peeling anywhere. Like, it's got to be in really good shape. And some of those houses that we purchase. So go back to the seller, for example. Let's say we run into Susie, who's trying to sell a house, and her grandmother passed away, and her grandmother didn't have the resources or the ability because of age to take care of the house. So it's kind of in disarray, and she doesn't have the funds to fix it to be able to sell it. She would call somebody or try to reach out to somebody like us to come solve that problem. And then she gets cash in 7 to 14 days. She doesn't pay any closing costs. We take care of all the title work. She just goes to the closing table and gets the check. And then we take it from there. It's a fix for her. And then our franchise owners take that product, create value, sell it, and then the margin's theirs.
Wow. That sounds like a really nice model. For your franchisees, what do you typically look for when you're looking for a new franchisee?
We are huge on culture. It's funny that your franchise or your conversations around that, but we probably say no more than we say yes. We could have grown faster than we have, but we're really picky on the franchise owners that are here. They're in protected territories. They decided to do that on purpose. We're very collaborative within the system. We do weekly roundtables, and everybody kind of collaborates and talks around different topics every Thursday. And we have a nice conference and a mid-year conference, and all those things. The end reason is to collaborate together. So the person that's been here for 6 years can talk to and help the person that's been here for 6 weeks. So they do communicate very well within the system. And then our coaching process is very on point. It's around EOS. I don't know if you are aware of what that is, but it's basically, EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a process that kind of keeps you on pace. And then we have some mindset conversation within there. So with that process, with the support system that we have within the home office to the franchise owners, and then what we look for in that potential franchise owner, the culture kind of rises. So we conduct surveys every year through the FBR, Franchise Business Review. Our number one attribute every single year is always culture.
That's great. And what geographic area do you cover, or does new?
We have franchise locations from Arizona to Tennessee, Florida, Massachusetts. We're nationwide in the US.
Employee expectations, workforce culture, have shifted over the years. How have the broader shifts with employee engagement, remote work, generational dynamics, anything you can think of influenced the way franchises think about culture?
It may be a bit different with our model. I know the question you're trying to ask. So think about our model. They don't really have employees, right? Everybody that works with them in their ecosystem is really a 1099 or a partner or a vendor. They are all remote. Like, they have a home office. There is no brick and mortar within our system. They could have one if they wanted to, but you don't need one. They work really closely with their main general contractor. Then they have a network that kind of spiders from there, depending on how many units they're working on at a time. But a lot of the folks that come to us that are interested in our model come to us because of that reason. They want to have the flexibility to be able to work remotely. They want to, the traditional franchise model, right? They want to work for themselves, not by themselves. I know it's cliche, but it really is the truth. So there's a really nice system to follow. They build the system. They make a pretty decent ROI the first year, and it just compounds there year over year over year. So the model really does, if you do the right thing and build your operational processes correctly, you can make an ROI the very first year.
Okay. And is that true in all the states too?
Yeah, the only difference in that is Northeast is really the only section in the United States where the real estate market hasn't changed a lot as far as the inventory levels. So they really have to hustle for a lower unit count, but they're making more margin per unit. So there is a variation there between them and probably the rest of the nation, but they're really doing well with the units that they get. They just have to fight harder for them because of the inventory levels. But like I said, they're making more, so it offsets.
How about in California? I'm in California, so that I'm curious about.
We had a location in California and he moved his location to Texas. So we don't currently have anything in California right now. But the gentleman that we did have in California had some pretty good luck. He was actually in Fresno area. He did pretty decent there, but it's Fresno's more rural than anything else.
Right, right. And I'm assuming the franchisees have to be in the territory, right? They can't own a
Yes.
territory remote.
Correct. You want to be because you need to walk the properties. There's a whole process around that you need to meet with the potential seller and negotiate the purchase price and then walk it with your contractor. We have a process around setting up the plan for construction and then you kind of keep the contractor on that plan. We do have a few of our franchise locations that have two territories or they have grown and have an operator that they manage in another territory. So that's an option with our franchise location as well.
Right, but they have to be able to drive to the
Correct.
location.
Correct. Or have a strong operator. Yes.
Right, or have a strong operator. Yeah. Well, how about AI? Are you guys using AI?
Our software is all proprietary and internally built. There's no, and that includes our website, that includes our digital presence. Everything's kind of connected with the way that we use that process. It really doesn't help to try to get an external source to aid with that because it's our process, our code, right? We do use it a lot within the coaching and the support side with training, but we don't really use it in the actual process of the main component of our business just because of the way it's built.
What's working well at New Again Houses? Like, what are you proud of?
Again, this is going to sound like cliche, but I'm mostly proud of the culture. And if you were to talk with any franchise owner at any location, you're going to hear the exact same thing. It's just how we're built, and it's the folks that we're proud to kind of bring into the fold, if you will. And they're all growing at the same type of pace. The growth from year one to year two, two to three, so on and so forth, mirrors each other, which states that the process is working. Operational excellence is continuing to grow. As a matter of fact, some of that's getting even faster. So the more we grow, the more efficient we get internally, the faster that first year growth process is. So to answer your question, culture is probably the best thing. I'm really proud of the way that we continue to pivot when we need to pivot in the way that makes sense for the franchise owners. Just because we did it that way yesterday doesn't mean we have to do that way tomorrow. But we don't pivot just to pivot. We use a lot of data and feedback from the franchise owners to do that.
That's good. That's something to be proud of. Culture is not something that you can just buy, right? It comes over time. So that's really great. And really interesting to hear the consistency of the growth between all the franchises. That's not something you hear very often.
Yes. There is a lot of interest from corporate America, folks leaving corporate America and going into the franchise world. As a matter of fact, franchising is probably bigger now than it's ever been, but there's still a lot of unknowns in the franchise world. I think our model is really simplistic to understand. It is hard to do. You got to really work, and the more effort you put in early, the easier it gets. Right? We've got franchise owners. We've got one particular franchise owner that's been in the system right at 5 years. He's a full-time dad, part-time, New Again Houses, right? But he's built that ability to do that, and he's growing at the pace that he wants to grow. But it took a lot of work to get there. It's a simplistic model, and I think people that are looking for a model like ours appreciate the simplicity of understanding it, and can roll up their sleeves and start a business from scratch that they're proud of, and grow it into something that pays pretty darn well too.
Oh, great. And on the flip side, what's been frustrating?
The most frustrating part is the dynamic of the real estate market, right? So you have to be able to pivot against things that you have zero control over. And just by personality type, some franchise owners do that really, really well. Some franchise owners really, really struggle with that, right? Like if everything, no matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent, if it was the same, they'd be okay.
Right.
So you got to help push those franchise owners across the bridge. to the new reality. And I guess the biggest frustration is moving things along against the wave of something we don't have any control over.
Yeah, that makes sense. In real estate, the interest rates are so high. Does that impact your franchisees or no? Because everything's
It doesn't impact them until they go to sell, right? And it's really the impact is it's kind of twofold. So it's inventory based and it's interest rate based. So the interest rate keeps some players off the field per se, and in the inventory, as inventory grows, the end buyer for the end product gets to choose from 20 products versus I have to choose from five, like a couple of years ago.
right.
So you have to really be on point and do the right thing so your house kind of stands out
Right.
to that end user. And we have to price it right. And there's a bunch of other things with that. But it does and it doesn't indirectly. The biggest thing is keeping people off the plane,
Yes.
waiting for an interest rate change.
People have been waiting a long time.
That's correct.
What do the franchisees, what metrics do they measure on a weekly, monthly, daily basis?
We measure the amount of traffic that they've had. We measure how many folks they've talked to, like a lead process for acquisitions. We measure how fast we got that process kind of figured out through the software. We measure how many units are in their system in their particular inventory, how well their operations are working around that. We measure their gross profit once they kind of complete that and get it off the books, and then compliance.
Right.
And there's 100 other KPIs within that spider web, but that's really the main things that we look at on a weekly basis. And then we even in our monthly coaching, and then talk through action steps, kind of get to their why at the end.
That's good. And you said that the average flips per year are 8 to 12. Is that average or is that like a fast pace or a slow pace? Like, I'm just curious on the range.
That's average. So there's kind of like a three-tier process to that. You know, the newer folks are probably within that year where they're pacing to be 4 to 5, right? But by the time you get to year two, you're really at 6 to 8, sometimes 10, depending on what the hustle factor is. But really, those folks at year three and on are averaging that 8 to 12.
And is there a max that you would say you shouldn't go over this otherwise?
We've talked about that to a couple different folks. So we feel like the 12 is a fantastic number unless you're wholesaling, meaning it's like a lower version of a flip, or you're wholesaling some units, or you're keeping them for rental. So like we have some folks that are building rental portfolios within there. So they'll technically do more units because they're doing some construction and then buying it within their portfolio to rent, right?
Okay.
So some of those folks are doing like 18 a year, and they may have an operator in there to help them. They've probably grown to a point where they have a process manager and a full-time general contractor to run all construction. We've got a couple folks in that sphere. But if you look at the average across the board, 8 to 12 is really the number that we're averaging. And that 12 to 15 mark is really for the quality of life is where we would recommend kind of staying at, because it's not easy to flip those houses. I mean, you're not physically, none of them are swinging a hammer, but you still have to manage several things. There's several plates spinning at once. You're managing the Lowe's account, you're managing the delivery, you're managing the contractor, you're managing the next acquisition, you're managing a deal that you're working with on the sale and the purchase side. There's a lot going on with that process. And you still want to have time to go home and eat with the family.
Wow, that's really impressive. Like you said, when you were doing it before, too, is really impressive. So to hear that amount that they're doing is great. Where do you want the business to be 6 to 12 months from now?
I laugh because we've had this conversation 100 times. I don't think that we necessarily have a number on that. And I'll tell you why. Is because of the type of person that we are searching for that next franchise location. I welcome everybody on the planet to talk to us to see if we're the right fit. We really base our success on growth we have internal numbers that we're looking for, but we really base it on picking the right person, right, to run that business. We don't want to have rough conversations because you thought it was one thing and then it's something completely different and it's just not the right fit. And we've had that in the past, but I want to minimize that as much as possible. So to answer your question, and I know I'm not really answering it, it sounds political, but we're going to be at 80. We have some internal numbers like that, but the real thing is I want to continue to grow somewhere between 10 to 15 units a year or territories a year on average if they're the right person, if they're the right people that mirrors the culture, the outlook that the other franchise owners are, who they are, and if they can work well together. All that matters to us because long term we don't charge an outrageous amount to be part of the system on purpose because the system's going to make its money on the output that you do as a franchise owner. So that matters. It doesn't do any good to sell sun, moon, and stars if you come in and it's just not the right fit. So great territory growth that mirrors our culture is we've got internal numbers that are a little more proprietary, but our operational aspects are continuing to shrink, which is good. Cycle days, that's the measurement on how long it took us to buy it, flip it, and sell it. And we have a number there that we're already exceeding, and I'm already kind of moving the needle on that a little bit more. So if we get more efficient in operations, we're never going to like save money, and it's really hard to move because of the price of a 2x4 is going to be the price of a 2x4. But you can get more efficient and do more units, right? And if they can do more units in the same amount of time and not add to the stress level, and that's more income for the franchise owner. So continued operational excellence is another 6-month target for us.
What would you tell your younger self to do differently if you started again today?
Oh, wow. The younger me, I've always been really driven, but I would do anything and everything to not fail. I would tell my younger self to not be afraid to fail, just learn from it faster and invest more. That's the two things I would say to my younger self, and hopefully I would listen.
What would you invest in? Like invest in yourself or invest in like the stock market or more real estate?
Yes. So I have a regimen currently that I do, and I have most of our franchise owners kind of mirror a process of that. But every morning I get up at the same time. I have a ritual pretty much that I go through, and part of that ritual is a self-development piece. I think the day you stop learning is the day you fall behind. So I didn't really do that much when I was younger. I thought I knew it all anyway. I think we all do. But then there's a lot of income that I've made in the past that I could have doubled or even tripled if I invested in different things, including real estate earlier and other aspects. The 401k piece and all that, I've done that forever. But I just kind of did that because somebody said this is a good thing to do. I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand some of the tax implications of having real estate. And there's just a lot of things that I've kind of learned over the years that I just didn't know. And I would have started it a long time ago.
That's great advice. As a leader, what are tips you would give to those who want to aspire to be a leader in a franchise one day?
If you want to be a leader in anything, if you own a franchise, it's your business. So this is advice within the franchise as well. You need to understand how to follow in order to lead. You need to understand how to empower folks. You need to understand everybody's mindset, how they think, how they focus, and then place people in the spot that they will succeed in. Don't go down the path of trying to fix things. You want to go down the path of making good great. And then if somebody is struggling, how do you have the direct conversation that helps them succeed without destroying them or without letting it float and they continue to go down the wrong path, right? So we do both of those naturally. You either have the person that wants to just bury everybody, I'm the boss, listen to me, or you have the person that's very amiable and they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so they won't give the right feedback even though they know it's not the right thing. Both of those are incorrect. We need to have the correct conversation, direct and pointed, but safe. So the ball's in their court, and if the person on the other end makes the mistake, they own that mistake, not you.
That's great advice. And if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Newagainhouses.com. You can find everything with us as far as the franchise locations, our history. Find my information on there. You can find Chad's information on there. He's our development manager, so he reports within the coaching structure. And Chad is really easy to talk to. So if you have some questions, set up an appointment with Chad Arnold, and he will answer anything you want plus more.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, John. It was a pleasure having you today. I learned a lot, and I actually wish I learned about New Again houses when I was looking at real estate a couple of years ago. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you got value, share it, tag us, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Catch you next time on the Ascend Growth AI podcast.